Today on the show, we got an exciting guest. We've had his wife on the show, Shay, but now we finally get Graham on the show. This guy is the author of a best-selling book, How to Get Paid for What You Know. You might know him from his podcast, The Graham Cochrane Show. You might know him from his YouTube channel with over 700,000 subscribers. Guys, today we're going to be digging into the gold that is Graham Cochrane. So welcome to the show, Graham.
I'm pumped to be here and hang out with you guys. I feel like Shay's had the privilege, like you said, to be on your show for a long time. And then I've gotten the privilege to get to know you guys over the last year and a half. And so I'm just honored to be here and just hang out with you guys.
Well, I just pre-ordered your book, just finished, and it comes out this fall. By the time this episode comes out, you can probably still pre-order it. But I loved the title of this book. I feel like it spoke to something in me because I resonate with this word. And the name of the book is called Rebel. Okay, Rebel. And sometimes I feel like we hear this word and it could have a negative connotation. But I hear this word and I'm like, these are the people that change the world. The people that do things differently. I have that Steve Jobs quote resonating in me, like, you know, these are the rebels, right? These are the outcasts. These are the people that do things differently. And I feel like if you're an entrepreneur, you're listening to this show, you're a mom building a business, like you're probably different from a lot of your friends. And so, Graham, I want to kind of bring it back. When was the first time you knew you were different?
I mean, I think unfortunately, I feel like I've been different my whole life. And growing up, like my dream was to be a rock star. And I've talked about this a lot in my first book. It's part of my story and it's part of the way God sort of arranged things. But everyone like has dreams when they're kids and we all want to be these great things. And I just never lost that dream. So when all my friends started to like give up music and they're like, I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to become a doctor. I'm going to get into investment banking. These are like my three best friends. That's where they all went. I was like, what happened to you guys? Like, what the heck? Like, I thought we were trying to make a run at the music thing. And I realized I was the only one that actually that was what I thought I was going to do. And so I knew I was different then. And I think part of my journey and the part of what's led to writing this book, Rebel, is that I was maybe naive in a good way back then to actually chase that dream. And I tried to get a record deal coming out of college. I had met Shay, my wife, in college. So we dated for 3 years. And so this is kind of 3 years into dating. I'm about to graduate. I need to get married to her. I need to have a job when I graduate. And so I was trying to get advance money. And that was the whole plan. Get a deal by the time you graduate and then at least take the next step and you'll have a chance at music. And I wanted to at least give it a chance. And when none of the deals were coming through, what I wanted, the best I was being offered were these development deals where they weren't actually going to pay you. They're like, hey, there's no advance money, but we'll sign you to our roster, you know, help you with your touring. You kind of do your thing on your own, like you've been doing it. And if it's working, then we'll throw money behind you. And I was like, I actually need a job. This is not going to work. So I had this fork in the road. I came to this place and I talk about this in the book, I call it an identity crisis intersection. I think a lot of people have this where you have a moment where you've had a dream. That dream could be a career dream. It could be a relationship dream. It could be a passion dream. And that dream dies. So either it doesn't ever happen. That was me with my rock star dream. Like I just kept getting no's and I had to make a choice. Or you had the dream, it was working for a while and then it dies. The business falls apart. The family falls apart. The marriage falls apart. The marriage dies, right? Something dies that you had a dream about. And then you're at this really tender spot that I call the identity crisis intersection where you're having a bit of an identity crisis because our dreams aren't just dreams, right? They're part of who we are. It's kind of the way God wired us. Our dreams are giant clues, I believe, to the way we're wired. And so you're so hurt and it's so painful. And so you're forced with a choice and there's a fork in the road and you can go left or right. And the left choice is to conform, is to like get back in line with everybody else and just go back to, you know, that being normal. For me, that was a stupid idea to want to be a rock star. I'm just going to go get a regular job like everybody else, pay my taxes, be a husband, one day be a father, and just not ask too much of life. That was conformity. For you, if it's a relationship that dies, it could be like, forget being married. I tried that. You know, that was painful. I'm just going to be single, or I'm just never going to get married or whatever. I'm not going to commit anymore. Shut off that part of my heart, right? We all do that. But you have another choice, and that choice is to dream again. Maybe it's another chance shooting for that same dream a second time, a third time, a 20th time, or maybe it's shooting for a different version of the dream or a different dream entirely, because we have so many different dreams if we really get honest with ourselves. And I think the path forward is to actually dream again. And this is a huge theme in the book, is like, look, the idea of life is like, you want to thrive. You guys are a really good example of this. Like, life can be frustrating. And a lot of times it's frustrating because we're literally living out of alignment with the way God wired us, the way we're designed. And if you're not a person of faith, it's just like the way you're wired, right? And so how do you live in alignment? Well, you got to figure out who you are. So the whole premise of the book is to find yourself. And you're not going to find yourself by just following the crowd, doing what everyone else does, raising their family the way they do, running your household, managing your money, having a career the way everybody else does it. It's not working for everybody else. So I don't know if I would want to follow everybody else. I really want to get back to that place of, how am I uniquely wired? What lights me up? And what's my path forward, either in business, family, all of that stuff.
This is so good. I would love to know, Graham, because I again, same thing like Stephen. I feel like, although I don't think I set out to be an entrepreneur, it wasn't until I met Stephen that I was like, wow, like we can do things differently. But even growing up before that, like I had a reading disability. I had to, work hard in school. I had all these things that already made me feel like an outcast, like a rebel in a lot of different ways. Like I learned differently. I did things differently. And I think for so many years, and even when we became entrepreneurs, like I recognized that we were rebels. I recognized that we were going to live our lives very differently. And I think I was almost afraid of stepping into that rebel identity or that rebel framework that you talk about. I almost like resisted it. Like, I don't want to feel this uncomfortable thing that, society or family or friends, because they don't understand it and they're trying to protect me or whatever it is. Or maybe it's my own thoughts. I think oftentimes too, we think people think things of us when they really don't. And so we get in our head. But I'm wondering, like, Graham, how have you walked out being okay with the decisions or the life that you have created? Because you and Shay have created a beautiful life. And I know you guys do things differently with your family, with your finances, with your businesses. How did you come to a place of like, hey, this is who we are? And when somebody makes a sometimes hurtful comment, or maybe it's like, actually they're trying to like get your attention and say something that doesn't feel right. How have you responded or learned to respond when you're like, no, I know that this is how I'm wired and what I'm supposed to do?
Oh man, it's such a good question. So in a way, if you're going to like the end of the book, right? So in the book, real quick, there's a 5-part rebel framework to finding yourself. And it spells out, it's an acronym, spells out rebel to make it super easy. The R is to resolve to dream again, which we kind of were starting to touch on. The E is to establish the outcomes you want in life, a little bit of vision, right? B is to break negative thoughts, habits, and patterns, because you can't do new stuff with all the old code and the junk and the stuff that we have to get out of there, prescriptive beliefs from the past, right? The second E is to engage in new rebellious thoughts. And then the L of rebel is what you're talking about, which is the hardest one for me, which is to let go of other people's opinions. And I think I'm a people pleaser by nature. And so I was at least rebellious enough in my youth that I just wanted the dream so bad. I was willing to pursue it, even though other people thought it was stupid. And my guidance counselor, like, I had this whole moment in my senior year where she pulled me into her office. And I'd never been in the guidance counselor's office, but I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. She seems real nice. And then she said, hey, Graham, I just wanted to check in with you. How's the college application process going? And, for context, I went to like a college prep school, this private school that my mom was teaching at. And I told her, oh, I'm not going to apply to college because I'm not going to need to go because I'm going to be a rock star. And like the color drains out of her face, right? And she goes from smiling, nice, I'm your friend, to like, what, did I say something wrong? And then she said something I'll never forget. She says, Graham, I don't care what you do with your life, but we have a 100% college acceptance rate at this school, and you will apply to a school and get into a school. Whether you go or not, that's your choice, but you're going to do this. And I was like, oh, okay. And that was like my first taste of like, the world says, I don't care what your dream is. This is what we expect of you. And so I at least had enough, all that to say, like I cared about the dream enough. I was like, screw you, guidance counselor, I'm going to do it. But when my music dream died and I had to like make a choice, and I made a choice to just take care of my wife and get a job. And I don't know if that was a bad choice. I think it was a responsible choice, but I kind of shut off my heart a little bit. And for 3 or 4 years, I said, I'm never going to dream again. I'm not going to pursue my passions. That's stupid. That was embarrassing because I told everyone. When I shut that off, part of me died, and I've had to like regain it, to your question, Chelsey, of like, I really paid attention to what other people thought because I didn't trust my own thoughts anymore. I didn't trust my own feelings or my own desires because they kind of got me into this situation. So I think, to your question, it's like the more like, it may be like with your followers and people that are starting these businesses, like it's really scary when you're starting, but when you can get those feedback mechanisms of you made your first few dollars and then it's starting to grow and you're like, oh, I can actually do this, right? The fear goes away a little bit. The confidence increases a little bit. And you know from empirical data that you're onto something. You know, maybe it's not the levels you want it to be at yet, but you're onto something. It's the same with you guys. Your business has been, it's been amazing to watch it grow, like meteoric rise. And I was loosely aware of you guys before we were in Wellspring together, and because Shay knew you guys and y'all knew her. But then the last 12 months has been incredible to watch. But even you guys, probably once you start to see that we're helping these families, we're helping women, like we have something that's truly working, you get that confidence where you can start to tune out the noise a little bit, but it still stings. So a part of the thing I teach in the book is to create your own value system. You just have to know like what you've decided you value as a family, what you value as a business. Like you just have to be really clear on those things. I'll give you a real recent example, like an email I got today. A decision that I've made in my business as a coach, because I have like courses and communities and things one-to-many, but I also do one-on-one. A decision I've made the last year is to no longer, because I did a little bit of this, no longer coach women one-on-one. So AKA, I don't want to be in a room with a woman. I have VIP days here in Tampa, like where I'll spend a whole day with you. I know I don't offer that to women where you come hang out with me for the day in my office, you know, and take you out to lunch. I mean, it's like a giant date with a woman, basically. So it feels like I don't do that. And I don't do long-term coaching packages with women one-on-one. And as a decision that I made out of prayer and of talking with Shay, of like, I feel like it was making Shay uncomfortable, my wife. And so I made that decision. And for whatever reason, with a couple of coaching offers that I've made recently, I've had a lot of pushback of women that are very angry that I'm not opening it to them as if I'm sexist. And I got a really nasty email this morning. I made a light joke on a sales page for something of like, hey, this VIP day option is just for men only. Sorry, ladies, my wife won't let me like spend a whole day with, you know, it's like a joke. I try to make it light. And this woman came out and attacked Shay and was like, she must be this, or this, and she's emasculating you. And she just attacked my wife in this email, and she's very angry. So all I have to say, like, not only I know I'm giving up money by not working with women one-on-one in that capacity, but I know why I'm doing it. Like I'm doing it to protect my marriage, to protect my heart, to make my wife feel more comfortable. And I have to be really okay with that decision, even though I'm realizing that not only has it made some people just disappointed that they wanted to work with me, at best they're disappointed, at worst they're angry at me. And they're like, this woman's calling my wife names and just really nasty stuff. And it's like, wow, any choice you make, you know, it's going to be loved and hated. And so this is why designing your life, designing your business, your marriage, like you have to get really clear on what it is you want, not what everyone else is doing. And that's so hard to do. But that's the whole premise of the book is you're never going to be satisfied or successful or of service to other people if you are doing it like everyone else is doing it. You have to do it your way.
What have you done, Graham? Because I've seen like you do this with your family even. But when you're looking, like, because I think the trap is that we're in this social media age, and it's really easy to see other people's dreams and other people's vision and be like, that sounds nice. I'll take a little bit of that, a little bit of that. Right. And like, you kind of like just, I don't know, you fall into like someone else's dream. And then, you know, there might not be as much resolve there, right? Where you're like, I'm all in on this thing. And then when limiting beliefs or pushback comes, it's really easy to get derailed. So, what do you do, like, even with your family or you, like, to really get that clarity on this is where we want to go? Maybe it's really specific, maybe it's more vague, but do you have any, like, I don't know, exercises or things you go through Because I think that is one of the first steps, right? Like, okay, we want to dream again, but then we want to, was the E envision? Was the second one envision?
Yeah. Establish the outcomes you want.
Establish the outcome. Okay. So establish the outcome,
Yep.
that one. I'm like, okay, I want to know about that one. Because if you don't do that first, then the other ones could be going the wrong direction, right? Like,
Yep.
so talk us through establishing, like, how do you do this? Is there a rhythm that you do? Is there something? Yeah. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, no, this is so powerful, Stephen, because right, like it's so easy. Business is a great example. Someone could see another business and go, oh man, the way they're doing this online, the offers that they're offering, what their goals they're shooting for. Something called mimetic desire, where we want what other people want just by seeing them want it. Like this is how marketing is used a lot. Like, and so, but we do this in other people's businesses. I guess I should want what she wants because that must be good. And so to your point, it won't last because when the waves come, if there's no resolve, that was a good word there, we're just going to give up. So I think people don't feel permission to decide what they want and what they want it to look like. And so that's where vision gets clear. And I think one of the best questions to frame this is the 3-year question. Like I used to have 10-year goals. And I think there's something powerful about long-term thinking. So I'm not discounting that. But the problem with a 10-year goal for me is that it's so far in the future. 10 years from now, I won't even have any kids in the house. Like it'll be a whole different world that I can't even imagine. So it's so removed from my current day reality that it's hard to get motivated or get clear on what that vision should look like. A 1-year vision, like this year, like New Year's resolutions, I'm going to do all these things. We overestimate what we can do in a year, Tony Robbins says, right? And I think it's true because there's just not enough time to really move the needle on big things that matter in life. You can do a lot, but not all the things. And so it's easy to get discouraged. 3 years is a very interesting time period for me because 3 years from now is close enough to my reality that I can pretty much imagine who I'm going to be in 3 years. It's not too far removed from my current season of life, but it's still 36 months from now. I mean, we could completely transform my physique, my marriage, my parenting, my finances, my business, my spiritual life. All 6 of those areas I could transform in 36 months. Like that's a lot of good time. So I love the 3-year mark. And so what I try to do with clients, and we do this in the book in the chapter on establishing the outcomes, is the best 3 years exercise, which is really simple. It's like the 3 of us bump into each other 3 years from now. And I'm like, Stephen, Chelsey, how the heck are you guys doing since we last spoke on your podcast 3 years ago? Hopefully we talked before then, but imagine we don't. And you're like, Graham, it's been the best 3 years of our lives. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Why? What's happened? What would you start to tell me about? And this isn't limited to business. This is just what would have to be true for 3 years from now. You say it's been the best 3 years of our life. And that's like a good journal prompt for what starts to come to mind. Okay, well, probably some big rocks that are already in your head. Like there's probably a pain point that's solved. There's probably a big dream you've had. There's probably an income level. But then the more you start to journal it out, you're like, well, the way we start our days would be different. Maybe our church community would be a little different. Maybe, where we live would be different. If we're honest about it, I don't want to be here. And so hopefully 3 years from now, we're actually living somewhere else. So you start to just unpack and download what you specifically as a couple, especially if you're a couple, but as an individual, what matters to you 3 years from now. And sometimes it's depending on how much work you've done with this sort of mindset work, it's going to be harder for some of us to dream and imagine because we're so stuck. But even then, 3 years, it's enough time to think, well, a lot could change in 3 years. I think that's the place that's why I get to that early in the book of I want you to see for yourself what you desire, what you value. And that's going to be different than maybe what Shay and I value. And we might have some overlap. Maybe we have some similar overlap in the spiritual side and the family side, but maybe business, because the type of business you guys run is different than the type of business I run. Maybe we're going to have a different vision for 3 years from now, what that looks like: income, reach, size, team. And so that's why I can't even compare myself to your business, because I love you as people. I love seeing good people win. And then I love your business and your business model, and the success is incredible. But if I compare even my business and the call God has on my life to what you're doing, it's going to really frustrate me because we're optimizing for different things and we have a different territory we're trying to take to do good in the world. So comparison really is pointless. That's why it's a deeper inner work of like, hey, this is what matters for our family. And Shay and I have done this like almost every year. We almost reassess this kind of thing of like, are we moving closer to or farther away from the 3-year vision? And maybe there's parts that are closer and parts that aren't. And that's how we've changed kids' schools. We moved it further into the middle of the city instead of the suburbs. We've changed business trajectories. I've shut down a business, like all these things, because when I imagine what I really want in 3 years, it's going to be different than what somebody else wants or what everyone else is doing. And I need to get as specific as possible so I can start to make daily changes.
Wow. That's good. I really love that. I mean, I feel like when I look back, we've owned a lot of businesses, and 3 years is always like, we've always said this. It's always like kind of when you really start to get in the swing of things. Like when we were in the wedding world, like it took really 3 years till it was like, this is a machine that's really moving, same with Rainmakers, 3 years. It's just like, there's something about it, but something about 5 years, it's almost like unpredictable. Like if I look back 5 years, I could not have predicted this. Right. And so, and then 1 year, like you're saying, it's almost like unrealistic, or like it has this pressure because you try to cram all these things in. So I love that. I feel like we're definitely going to take that to our next annual planning because it's a great in between. It's reachable, but it's also still faith filled in that like you can reach pretty far in 3 years. So thank you for that. That's amazing. As you're reaching, as you're like dreaming, as you're, maybe your husband and wife, you're doing this separately and bringing it together and seeing the overlap, then the mental junk starts to come up, right? That's the next part of your framework. I want to talk about this. How do you dismantle these mental scripts, because being different means not just going against what other people say, but going against sometimes what yourself is saying, right? So I don't know, Graham, maybe you talk us through a story. What is a mental script that you believed for years, maybe that kept you stuck? And what was the process to break through in that? What's up, Rainmaker? If you're like me, having a good night's sleep is an absolute must, especially as a parent and an entrepreneur. And I feel like I found the secret weapon. It's called 8 Sleep. This brand is a way to add heating and cooling to any bed. And I'm telling you, this cooling feature is an absolute life changer for me, especially during those warm summer months. This might be TMI, but I sweat very easily. And I didn't really realize how much this was affecting my quality of sleep. Once I slept on this bed that has a cooling feature, imagine like the cool side of the pillow, but like all over your body all the time. I do not know how I lived without this. So if you're ready to revolutionize your sleep, head over to rainmakerfamily.com/deals. We got a hookup for Rainmaker Family Show listeners. Again, that's rainmakerfamily.com/deals and check out 8 Sleep. All right, back to the show.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's so many, especially as entrepreneurs, right? There's so many mental scripts that we tell ourselves. And so really it's a story we're telling ourselves. There is an inner narrative. And in the book, there's a chapter where I walk you through an exercise I call having an inner story audit. And it's just like an audit, like you're just taking note of, or like Tim Ferriss talks about, trapping your thoughts on paper. You're just sort of journaling down, what are the things I'm telling myself every day about whatever the thing is? So if you're starting a business, you already have a story about business in general, you in particular, your business, what's possible, what's not, whatever. It's just a story. There's no police, like business police, that are saying these are the rules. Like we're all making it up and then we're acting out of that story. So it's important to like audit our inner story. So I have like 6 questions I walk them through in the book. But like for me, I had a lot. So when I started my first business, I was a freelancer, kind of like you guys. Like I was helping people produce their albums. So I was working with indie artists and bands and singer-songwriters. And so I was trying to do as much freelance work as I could. And then I started a YouTube channel in 2009 and a blog teaching like how to record music, thinking that it might be good, like lead gen. People would be like, oh, this guy's good at what he's doing. I don't really want to do it myself, because there was a DIY movement, but I wanted people to see how hard it was. Not that I try to make it hard, but a lot of people just they were like, I just want you to do it for me. And I thought it would give me leads, which it did. But part of the story I talk about in my first book is that like that turned into a whole business in and of itself. Of people wanted more training. They wanted to do it themselves. They wanted me to coach them and give them courses and community. One of the lies I believed was that there was a small number of people that would buy courses or information from me, that like, okay, I made a few bucks, but it's never going to match what I could do in my freelance business. So in my mind, my goals were based around like maybe 50-50. Half my income will come from the service and half of it will come from the digital product side of things. And that was like a belief I held just because I had never seen anyone do it. I didn't know the other course creators in the world. I didn't know the Amy Porterfields, and like that wasn't a thing for me. I was making it up as I was going along. And so it kind of limited my income until like one day I remember making a decision of, well, wait a second. Like, if I'm being honest, there's infinite money that could be made here because there's 7 billion people on planet Earth. I can't serve all 7 billion of them. And I could sell multiple products to each person on planet Earth. They wouldn't just buy one. I could have multiple courses, and I could charge higher prices than I'm charging now, and I could have recurring. Like, if I really got serious and did the math, I'm like, wait, there's way more upside to the digital side of things. Just because I don't think people will buy from me doesn't mean that they won't. Like, I'm not. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of times, and you know this in business, we prohibit people from giving us money because we don't allow them a chance to give us money because we make the decision for them. Well, they would never. This is happening with raising prices, right? People don't raise their prices because they don't believe other people will pay that price. But it's like, it's not up to me to decide what they'll pay. It's my decision to offer something and see what the market says. And people are always blown away. I have a guy who's coming to, I'm doing a mastermind event here in Tampa in 2 weeks. A great friend of mine, a previous client, but it's been awesome to watch his rise. He was selling courses to musicians, online courses for $300. And his limiting belief was that was the most you could sell, the highest price you could sell to a hobby niche like a musician. He's now selling that same course for $5,000. Right? Now, it includes a little bit of, implementation and support and stuff. So it's not quite just the same thing, but it's primarily the same thing. And he's gone from $300 to $5,000, and it's converting at a higher percentage rate than what he did before. And it's like his whole mind has been blown. He was telling this to the group that we're creating. He's like, I 5 years ago would have thought that's impossible. But he had a story that he was believing that that's how much people will pay. And we do this all day long, whether it's in business. We do this with our marriages all the time. This is like, we tell a story about our spouse. She never supports me. He doesn't believe in me. He thinks I'm lazy. Like, we feed this story. So it's just so important to get it out there and then question it. And one of the questions I love that Julia Woods talks about, she's a brilliant couples coach, is this true? And you might say, well, of course it's true. I believe it. You're like, okay, well, what else could be as true, if not truer than that statement? At least consider what else might be true. And just that exercise alone creates more neural pathways. It creates, flexes the muscle of curiosity. And then you go, oh, well, maybe this could be also just as true, if not more true. And that's when you start to open up doors for all kinds of growth in all areas of life.
That's so good. I know, like, we were in the wedding world before Rainmakers, and Chelsey was like, you got to teach what you know. Like, like she was trying to get me to create a course on like videography or something, because she saw the teacher gift in me. And I think I had this limiting belief of like, oh, I'll just teach later. Like, I'm really good at like shooting videos and creating these edits, and like, I'm just going to like make money doing that, and like being the doer, not the teacher. I was like, I'll be able to teach later, like when I'm older. So I had this script. I mean, you remember this, I'd always push back on her. And then we were in a room with Jenna Kutcher, because Jenna was from the wedding world.
Yep.
And she was just starting to sell online courses, starting to, monetize in a different way. And she mentioned from stage how much she had made that year selling these courses. And it was like, that broke off the limiting belief. I was just like,
wait, what?
Here, I was like, I had no idea, like that. I was focusing on the wrong thing at the time, right? And I could actually create more family freedom by leaning into this other side. And so sometimes, like, I've seen that so many times where I have one belief, but then I get around a room of other people. That's why we're in a mastermind with you guys and a bunch of other higher level business owners, because they break your mindset. I had the mindset we had to pay this much in taxes, and then I got on a table with Mike Ayala, and he's like, you don't have to pay that much in taxes.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Tell me more. I took over his whole lunch, and that advice has saved us so much money, right? So I think, I love the idea of journaling and auditing those thoughts. We do this with each other, like, hey, I know you're thinking this or saying this. I want to challenge that, right? I think getting in a relationship where you could do that, and then getting around mentors or other people that have already stretched their beliefs in an area that we are feeling limited, like, that has been a game changer for us. And that's why we're in masterminds all the time, because it just helps.
Mhm.
Well, let me ask you a question. Let me flip it on you guys. Like with the women that you help and you're helping them start these businesses, like a lot of probably what you're doing in not only the sales process, but the coaching process is probably helping them undo some limiting beliefs about what's possible, what's allowable, depending on the cultural background they had about being a working mom or whatever. Like, what are some of the common beliefs or inner stories you see that you try to help them see a different way?
Mm. I think there's a couple for sure. One
Yeah.
that is really standing out to me is, and I think moms feel this all the time or often, regardless of if you have started a business or not, just like overwhelm and fear and doubt and I'm like discouragement almost. And I think sometimes in entrepreneurship, even if you started a business before, like some of our moms, like they are high level, like in corporate or very smart, very educated. And so I think when you do something different, like starting to run any kind of new business, it can be like learning a new language. And there is a learning curve to being an entrepreneur, to being a business. Like every level you go, there is a little bit of a learning curve. And I think sometimes people get met with adversity or met with really hard and they feel like it's a sign to quit and like this is too hard, I want to throw in the towel. And I think why we teach so much about like being mindful, and I love that you teach this in your framework in Rebel. We just talked about like taking your thoughts captive, writing down what you're thinking about, because I really do believe that you can build a super successful business, but if you haven't done the inner work, if you haven't done like the mindset, taking your thoughts captive, really thinking about what is my 3-year goal? How am I going to get there? How do I stay that course when things get hard? I think it'll just take you out, and no amount of money will solve those internal deep wounding that we all have. We all have childhood wounds. We all have like trauma that we walk through, and that will manifest even more in business. And so I just think about our mamas, and we have an awesome community group. And I think just social media in general, like life isn't perfect. It's not always a straight road. But I think in those moments of hard, really leaning into your why and knowing like, I don't necessarily think when things get hard, it's a sign to quit. I think it's actually a sign to like continue moving forward. It's like this opportunity of like what you talk about, like there's like that road that happens. You can go one direction, and in my opinion, when you start a business, when you're going out to create extra revenue, it's like you can go back to where you're at right now, which probably feels comfortable but hard, but it's not going to get you the goal that you just talked about. And so there's this incongruence there. So I think that's the biggest thing when discouragement comes up, because it will. I think that's an opportunity to be mindful of your thoughts, what you're saying, what you're believing, because sometimes those thoughts and belief will actually tell like what your future could be like. If you're hopeful, it's probably going to be good because you have those mindsets. But if you're like, oh, this isn't going to work out from the beginning, then it's probably going to be a lot harder for you to continue in that business.
Yeah.
What I would say.
We do a lot of language replacing, because I think the more you can shift your language, the more your mind will catch up to it, and then your actions will catch up. And so we talk a lot about shifting from I can't to how can I, right? Which is shifting from problem focus to possibility focus, right? It's like, this isn't a problem, this is a possibility, or this isn't happening to me, this is happening for me, right? And that shift from victim, powerlessness to victorious, powerful, like that alone, like will help get through any hurdle that comes your way. And so we constantly are kind of repackaging and rehitting that mindset, because that's the biggest thing that tends to come up.
That's so good.
In all the levels of entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah. Well, Graham, I would love to end the show by dreaming forward a little bit. Tell us a little bit about it's 3 years from now, and we're seeing you. Okay. It was the best 3 years of your life. Like, what did they look like? I know you're launching this book, but what's on your heart? What are you dreaming about?
Oh, that's so deep right there, man. So I would say, part of my next 3-year vision includes writing more books, more thought leadership books that aren't just business, right? So that's part of like limiting beliefs is like the last 6 years. I mean, first 7-8 years, I was the music guy. And then it's like, I can't teach business. I'm the music guy. just like you guys, you were the wedding people. Well, you can't teach business. Like, so that was a limiting belief over that. And then now it's like, well, I've been the business guy, and specifically the online business guy with information products. And I can't talk about like more lifestyle design and relationships and like faith stuff. Like that's not what I'm known for. So I'm stepping into that vision with this book. And so I think 3 years from now, I will be writing more thought leadership stuff in that vein. Like I want the whole person to thrive. Like my business, I love my business, but it's there to serve my life, not the other way around. So I want it to be part of my overall vision for my life. So I want to teach more of that stuff. So I'll be writing more of those books, speaking on more stages and traveling to speak. I'm a musician, right? So I miss the live stage. Like I'll do podcasts and webinars, videos all day long, but I'm literally all by myself here in the office. And so it's very lonely. And even though I'm an introvert, I love the energy of the stage. So I'll be doing more speaking. And then 3 years from now, my oldest daughter, Chloe, will be going off to college or leaving the house or jumping into whatever she wants to do next. And so I will be both, this is going to sound weird, I'll be both expanding in terms of the work I do and who I'm reaching and the impact I hope I'm having and the satisfaction I'm getting out of it, but also like not contracting, but like quieting down. I want to be even less like locked into anything. So I have even more flexibility so that if my daughter moves somewhere else, like she loves New York City, she loves California, maybe she'll be out with you guys. Like if she's not in Florida where we are, I want to have even more flexibility to, at the drop of a hat, just go spend a month with her or a week with her or both my daughters. So it's like I want to both take over the world and then also not the world not need me at all.
Yeah.
And so I'll somehow figure that out in 3 years.
Yeah.
How about that?
I love that. That's beautiful.
If anyone's going to figure it out, you're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
Graham. We've seen you do life different. And like Chelsey and I have always looked to you and Shay as just family inspiration. Just how you guys run your household is rebellious in a good way, right? It's just different. And it is making an impact. And we just super appreciate who you are and what you're pioneering. And excited to champion this book. So I'm crying.
No, I really do think we're younger parents. We've been entrepreneurs for a while, but you guys are in that next season. It's so freeing and cool to see families doing business and doing life well, because I think it, like I said, that rebellious, I've always known that, but then to have people further ahead that are almost right behind you guys are that whispering ear, hey, you got this. It's totally okay. You've given me, Shay's given me, and you too, so much freedom and we can do things differently. And it's really beautiful and exciting. So really, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh man. Thank you. That's the whole hope of this book, is to set people free to do it their way, man. And that's so beautiful. And you guys are, just for a moment, can I just say something? You guys are doing such a great job with your family and your businesses. And I know there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of expectation and there's no real good template for what you guys are stepping into. And you guys are pioneering, but I just want to encourage you that you guys do it with a lot of humility and grace. And you have so much clarity about what are the most important things in your life that you're anchored. And so just to encourage you, you guys are doing such a great job, and you put family first. It's literally in your business name too. Family is in what you do, and you're helping so many other families do it as well. You're tangibly setting them free. So I love what you guys are doing, and I want to champion that. So keep at it.
Thank you.
How can people get this book? I know people have probably already Googled it, but what is the best place to send them? I know I just opted in to get this book pre-order, and there's some sweet bonuses. So tell people maybe that secret link, and we'll get it in the show notes as well.
Yeah, just go to therebelbook.com. You can pre-order it wherever you want. There's links there for all the major retailers, but definitely once you get your receipt, go to therebelbook.com and put it in there, because I have about $300 worth of bonuses. We did a masterclass with John Gordon where we're teaching through the whole concept of the book. There's a journal that goes through it with all the exercises from the book. So you could start working on the journal now while you're waiting for the book to come out. So I try to just give you a ton of stuff. There's 30 days of coaching from me in your inbox, a ton of good stuff in there that you could start working on building out your rebel lifestyle now while you wait for the book to come out. But yeah, therebelbook.com. It's all available.
Awesome.
TheRebelBook.com. Thanks so much, Graham, for being here. Hey, if you're listening to the show, you know a rebel in your life who thinks this way, who resonates with this message, definitely share this episode with them. Tag them in it, share it with them, put it in their inbox. This could be the thing they need in this season. So thank you, Graham, for being here, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rainmaker Family Show. If you're not a part of our mastermind yet, I want to say I think you're missing out. Our heart here at Rainmaker is to create total abundance for you. That's why we're offering a free one-on-one family freedom design session for you, our faithful listener.
Yeah, if you want to hop on a call with our team, see if it's a good fit to build a business that creates time freedom for you, financial abundance, and helps you leave that thriving family legacy. That's what we're all about in our mastermind. You can grab a time on our team's calendar at rainmakerfamily.com/mastermind. Again, that's rainmakerfamily.com/mastermind.